What's up, everybody? This is Ted Karras with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cincy hat, and you're watching Bengals and Brews.
Let's go. You can't beat that, Newt. Come on. The music's different. I told you the music sucks, but having Ted Karras introduce your show is pretty cool.
So I got to tell you this like super small side story. So like what got me into, and I think I mentioned it on the show back in draft season, but like what got me in the NFL draft is me and my buddies, we do like a super dynasty league where we're drafting like offensive linemen and defensive linemen, and we're kind of doing everything. Ted Karras is a member of my team. So like seeing that, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, I love that dude. That's awesome that you got him on the intro.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and what he does with Cincy Hat and everything and raising money for people with developmental disabilities is awesome. So shout out to Ted. Good dude.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're going to be talking some summer scouting, quarterbacks, a little different for Bengals and Brews, but Friday is 4th of July, so no normal Bengals and Brews show Friday. So it works out perfect. We'll talk quarterbacks today. You never know. We could be talking some other positions here. You know, me and Newt's got to talk about that after the show and see what works out for our schedules, but appreciate anybody tuning in. It will be a little different. We are just talking prospects, so these are guys who will be draft eligible. I don't expect all the guys on our list necessarily to be in this draft class, but I went ahead and added guys who maybe are not in my draft guide. So if you got a draft guide and you're like, bullshit, that ain't who you had at number 2. You didn't have Arch Manning in there. I have him with 2027, but I have a kind of write-up in my 2027 group. And when I update that in August, I'll probably include everybody and just filter it out depending on how their season goes. And then obviously it gets filtered out when they make their decisions. But it's good to cover them all when you're talking these different positions.
Yeah, I was just listening to actually the Stock Exchange quarterback rankings. I'm a little behind on their summer scouting, but I like how they said it. It's, you know, until January 15th or whatever date comes, if you are a draft eligible quarterback, I'm going to evaluate you like you're going to be in the 2026 draft class. And until that point, like I'm going to assume that if not, awesome, I got a write-up done for you for 2027. But I'm with you, man. If all of these quarterbacks came out in this class, we might be talking about this is like one of the greatest quarterback draft classes of all time. You know, we saw a really good one 2 years ago, and obviously the group with like Tagovailoa and Joe Burrow. And all those guys, phenomenal group. But like we would probably be talking about this group kind of in that same line if they did. So a lot of good quarterbacks we're going to be able to talk about today.
Yeah, man. And the way we're going to do it, we're going to start with, and we're having some brews on a Wednesday, by the way. So if you guys that have been watching the show, you know, like Fridays usually Rum Friday. I've got my Miller Lights and a sweet gold can. Newt, what are you drinking today, buddy?
So I got my lattes, my Busch lattes, and I got them in my Father's Day present from my son Patrick. Little koozie right here. So excited to have that.
Yeah, shout out Patrick. Shout out for the awesome Father's Day gift. You can never go wrong with a koozie, a custom koozie. Come on, man. That's the lead.
Custom koozie for my kids. It's like the greatest thing in the world.
But we're going to do our top 10 quarterbacks, and like I said, these guys may not all be in, but they're all draft eligible. So, and there's guys that, you know, that Newt may have on his list that I don't. And one being is 9. But before we get to 9, we'll start with 10. So we'll kick it off. Newt, who is your quarterback number 10 for this draft class right now?
My quarterback number 10 is currently Fernando Mendoza. So there's a couple guys that I haven't gotten to just give like a full transparency, like Wegman I haven't gotten to, Jalen Daniels haven't gotten to, Mateer I have not. I've heard a lot of fun things about Mateer, so I'm excited to kind of get to him. But Mendoza comes in at number 10 for me. He was actually a late addition. He was not on my summer scouting series that I did over on the Weekly Huddle. So he's a guy, and I know he's getting a ton of buzz all over like the draft space right now. I think with kind of a lot of the things that he did last year at Cal, he is definitely an interesting cat. And I think Cal, kind of the season that they had last year being down is, you know, something that maybe kept his name a little bit in the weeds. Him going to Indiana this year, I think it'd be an awesome opportunity for him. But with him, I think he's a gunslinger for sure. The first thing that like brought me to him was just like seeing this guy throw the ball around the field. I was actually watching Jaden Ott, and I'm watching the film for Ott, and as I'm going through and looking at it, I just like, this guy is just throwing bullets all over the field. I'm like, who the hell is this? And I was like, Mendoza. I'm like, okay, like I've heard this name. I've been like meaning to check him out. Let's like kind of watch him side by side. And I was like, oh shit, this guy can throw the ball.
Yes, he can.
And I've got a couple things written down for him. Like he puts the ball on a rope on like short to intermediate routes. Like he can throw the ball over the middle. Like you talk about for the quarterback position, making pro style throws. He has the ability and the arm talent to do that. He's able to put the ball over the middle, find a little bit of that soft spot. He's got the arm to kind of rifle it in there. He can kind of go outside of the hash, outside of the numbers, hit those sideline shots. And so I think that he definitely has kind of what you're looking for from an NFL quarterback. I don't think his arm is like the greatest, but I think it is like enough to make it in a pro system. I think it tapers off kind of once you start pushing the ball farther than 25 yards downfield. But he's got a rifle kind of in that intermediate to short range.
Yeah, he will be one I talk about, but he's a little higher on my list.
I like this already.
Yes, and that's the fun of it. So I'll go into my quarterback 10 first, and I'll save my talk for Mendoza, which won't be because, Newt pretty much talked about most of his traits there, so I won't spend a ton of time. But Aiden Childs, a guy who I know will be later on Newt's list as well.
I was going to say, we're going to flip-flop this, yeah.
Yep. This is a guy another guy who's not in the draft guide. So I've had him at 2027, but doing stuff with Draft Professor and everything. We actually covered Michigan State. So I had to go and watch him more in depth because he was one of the guys on our list when we're covering Michigan State. So I'm like, okay, I can see what people see. I still think he's probably 2027 for me, but he has all the traits that you want in a quarterback. So he's 6'3", 217. So that's good size, good frame, and he can run the ball. He's only going into his true junior season, I believe. I think he started off, was at Oregon State potentially as a freshman. And I think he maybe played a few games, but then transferred to Michigan State last year. It was his first year kind of as a starter at Michigan State. And the turnovers were not very good early in the season, but then it was like 8-3 the second half of the season, touchdowns to interception ratio. And he really came on. He's got some running ability. He's got a strong arm. He's got the things you want, but he's got to set his feet more. He's got to be more, just take control of that off. And you started to see that in the second half of the season. And I think that's why a lot of people probably have him higher than what I do, where I'm like, sometimes with these guys, I just stay a little lower because like, I want to see it now for a whole season. Yeah. Can this guy take that next step for a whole season and maybe 2 whole seasons if he doesn't come out till 2027? But I really like Childs. And if you just look at the overall numbers, it's 13 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. So if you look at that, you're going, well, that's not great. But like I said, it was much better the second half of the season. He's got to take care of the ball. One thing I also like, he was a team captain last year as a sophomore, as a transfer, as a guy who just goes into that program. And I know a lot of teams, a lot of GMs look at that and they go, hey, here's a guy who's a leader. Here's a guy who commanded respect when he came in and at the most important position in football at quarterback. So that's one thing I really like about him. He's pretty effective with play action, good deep ball. Yeah. I think he'll have a better group of receivers this year. They had a couple transfers coming in, plus a kid that was only a freshman last year that was really good. I'm blanking on his name now, but he's only going to be a true sophomore. So I think the weapons are there along with Jack Velling at tight end, who I like. So
don't get me started on Jack Velling. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, man. Because I'm on there with your guy from Weekly Huddle. So
yeah, my boy.
You were well in that conversation when we talked about Jack Velling because I like him too. Nice. But I just want to see a more complete quarterback. But Maryland game was a good game. That's something Jim's got me doing is trying to point out a game here or there that people want to go watch. Aiden Childs, if you want to see some of the best of him, was the game against Maryland. And so that's my quarterback 10. Aiden Childs, Michigan State, big season for him. And now we'll move to Newt's quarterback 9.
Oh, and I'm gonna butcher. I cannot say it correctly for the life of me. So it's Nico Iamaleava. I said it wrong.
It's good enough. Honestly, it's good enough. Iamaleava, like we know
Yeah, we know who it is. So Nico, and I don't know, are we going to get to him on your top 10 list? I don't want to spoil anything too much, but
No, he's
okay.
not on there because I'm strictly now after the transfer stuff and everything. He'll now be at UCLA from Tennessee. You guys, I'm sure, all know him from Tennessee. Yep. You'd probably heard about the transfer stuff. He is not on my list, but man, he would be around this range for me if I had to put him in this group. But I just held him outside because there's a couple guys I like at 10 and 9, with Childs and the next guy I'll get to here in a second.
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk about Nico.
And like I said, so I've gotten a little bit of time to look at Mendoza. I like with Nico, he's kind of like the next guy up. There's a lot to like about Nico. If you take a look at him, and I think this is something that's making me kind of hold on to him kind of in this top 10 range, because he could definitely explode and kind of pop into like easily a top 5. It's just that athleticism. Like he brings that to an offense, and he's got the caliber of tools that you want to see. He's got an NFL arm. He's got athleticism for days. He's a former volleyball player, and he's just got it in his build. He's a tall, long guy that can, create the opportunities to put the ball really where he wants to. A lot of the things that come in for him that put him at 9 rather than, in that top 5 that I talk about that he's got the ceiling or the opportunity to get into are just going to be, some of those discipline fundamental pieces that come into it. His reason for going to UCLA was he felt like he was being held back by the Tennessee system. I'm not going to argue that he was, in my opinion, being held back by the Tennessee system. I think that's totally legit. Is that his reason for going to UCLA? I don't think so. But that's a conversation for a different podcast. Yeah. But definitely, like to your point, that's something that like people are looking at and thinking about. So I'm excited for him to play this season in the UCLA system. I ultimately think, being there is a good thing for him, having the opportunity to showcase his draft stock. Is he able to lift up a system and be the one that creates the success, or is he just having success created because it's a schemed offense? There's a lot of criticism last year around Jackson Dart, and I would say that was probably the biggest criticism of him was playing in that Ole Miss offense and them saying, well, he was a one-read quarterback that was just asked to do things, read and then run. Nico, very similar in Tennessee. So kind of the opportunity now, if he can showcase that arm and if he can fix a lot of those fundamental things, like technically he's got to clean up his throwing motion. He sails a lot of balls. He has to hold on to the ball more. He had 10 fumbles in 2024, something you absolutely cannot have. Yeah. He was actually decent with throwing the ball. So then one of the stats I really like to use is like big time throw percentage versus turnover worthy play percentage, all that via PFF. He had like a 4.8 big time throw percentage, which if you are flirting with or above 5, that's a phenomenal number to be at. Basically what that means is 1 out of every 20 throws is a like impactful big time throw. And he had like a 2.5 turnover worthy play percentage, which is okay. But it's still something where you like to see that difference there. So he obviously with that has those elements to him, the athleticism, the arm talent, really all of those pieces I like to see. I just want to see him take that step forward now where he's not kind of having the hand held for him. And I want to see him rise above and really be the reason that a system is finding success, not a part of the success of the system.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how he does at UCLA, honestly, because it's like he's gonna, as the system might not have been perfect at Tennessee for offense, but talent around him now I think is even less than what he had at Tennessee when you're talking about linemen, receivers, running backs. They had Sampson. They always have a ton of good running backs there. So now it's going to be a lot on his shoulders on how much he can elevate UCLA. So he could end up a guy as a first round pick if he has a big season and come out, if he elevates that team, or he could be a guy that we're going, okay, is he transferring again? Is he trying to find now, does he have an average season and now he's trying to find a better place with more weapons around him? It's going to be interesting. He is one of the biggest guys, I think, to watch to see where his value could go. Because to me, it's all over the place, right?
Yeah, and there's a couple guys that I always talk about where it's like, this guy will not be here come November, December. They're either going to sink or swim, Nico is exactly that guy. I think that, you talk about going into the draft, you're always going to have boomer bust prospects. But with Nico, like everything has now become so focused on him this season. And to your point, like he does not have to come out this year. Like, and there's a handful of guys that do not have to come out this year. But with him, I think there's going to be a lot of that scrutiny on him based around that decision to leave Tennessee, and whether it be for the money versus the opportunity outside of that system, those things are all going to be put under a microscope. Well, who'd you have at 9?
I have Sawyer Robertson. So I know this is a guy not on your list, but yeah,
he's on my list to check out. I definitely want to get a look at him.
He's kind of come on late for me, and honestly, it's a lot of the Baylor guys. So they're running back. I got a receiver that I've been watching more of. So all these guys are going to be added to the draft guide. It's just a school that honestly I didn't watch much of, so I'm late getting up on them. But a lot to like with him, and redshirt senior, so there's not a doubt he'll be in his class. Which at being quarterback 9, you're still talking like a day 3 prospect. But we're at on day 3. Who knows? I could see this guy end up as a 4th or so round pick. He's 6'4", 220, so that's ideal size for a quarterback. He's improved his accuracy each season. He's a tough competitor, impressive throwing on the move, has good mobility. He did have 8 interceptions in 2024. That's not awful, but it's something that he could work on and improve. So that you want to see him cut down on the turnovers, just be a little more consistent with his footwork, his technique, everything. And, he could have a good season, but yeah, surprising mobility for his size. He's a guy that kind of surprised me when I watched him, and one of those that I kind of kept Nico out, honestly, because like I want to mention this guy because I don't feel like too many people are talking about Sawyer Robinson. I know some guys are, but it's like this is a guy I think that could have a big season, and Baylor honestly could be a surprising, really, really good offense. I don't know about the defense, but their offense could be really good this season. So I wanted to mention Sawyer Robertson as just a guy to keep an eye on for this upcoming season more than anything, because he will be in this draft class. For sure.
I mean, redshirt senior, like this is it for him. No, that's cool. Look, he was another name that I've heard, and I've been excited to get eyes on him. There's about 5 quarterbacks, and I'm like, damn, I did not look at enough of these guys. And so I'm excited based on what you said to get some eyes on him. So that's a good call out.
Well, it's always tough. You might watch 25 of these guys, 30 of these guys, and then you get about 8 or 9 of them drafted. So it's like, how much time do I want to invest in all these quarterbacks? And some of them, you want to wait to watch more of, but I definitely feel ahead of the curve. And this is another guy I do not have that is your number 8 here, Carson Beck, who is transferring to Miami this season. About Beck. He's 11 for me. So he is on my list, but I have him at 11. And part of that is Childs once I watched more Childs, I bumped him ahead of him. But I mean, Beck was a guy who was in the area for first overall pick going into last season. Some people.
Oh yeah.
He had an awful season, but go ahead and talk.
To be fair, Beck has played twice as much college ball as Childs. So I think like when you look at that, there's definitely like a little bit more, I don't want to say room for growth for Childs, but like there's a lot he hasn't had an opportunity to do that. Beck through 4 seasons of actual playing has. So take a look at Carson Beck. And I got the same question when I did episode on Mr. Irrelevant with Jim and Bill. And it's like, why do I have Beck at 8 still? And I think that to me, I just see the arm as still being that NFL caliber arm. I really do. I think he's got the opportunity to make the throws that you would want out of an NFL quarterback. And I think that with him, you saw 2023 and you saw him being that elite type of player. And I think the conversation is always going to come back to, was he a part of something special or was he like leading something special? And obviously last year you saw him kind of fall apart. And I really think that Bama game and how that turned out and, kind of how the season went from there, I think that was a really big turning point for Beck. Faced a lot of adversity, faced a lot of criticism after that. And I don't know how much he was able to really kind of sculpt himself and get himself back to, a point where he had that confidence and that swagger back. And I think that's a really big thing that any player that plays a quarterback position really needs to have. You need to have the confidence to make the throw that you want to make, the the read that you feel comfortable in. You don't want to have to second guess it. And I think that as the season progressed, he started to do that because I think he has the ability to make those throws. I think he has the understanding of what receiver to hit with that. So I think the biggest thing with him was a loss of confidence. But if you take a look really at any game, that was a big game for him. He really, really struggled to read defenses. He had so many picks last year that was just like, what are you doing, guy? Yep. It was like, did you not see the safety sitting over the top? And I know like some of them, like that last interception against Bama, he's trying to put the team on his back. He's thrown into double coverage, just really trying to win a game, and it was picked. And I'm not putting that on him, like saying that was a bad pick. But there was something like the Texas game. If you watch that, it's just like, dude, we cannot be making throws like this. How do you not see those? So the IQ has to start to catch up to the arm talent, in my opinion, because those are the two most important things for a quarterback is the ability to make the throws and the understanding of when the throws need to be made. So if Beck can have a season where he really shows that he's able to have a strong understanding of the integral pieces of the quarterback position beyond just the physical talents, I think that we could still be talking about him as being a top 100 pick. If he falls off a cliff, I don't think he's even going to be drafted. Like if he has a season at Miami that mirrors the second half of the season last year, we won't hear his name come off the board because for his arm talent, I think it's an NFL caliber arm talent. There's other guys that have that arm talent that are able to be a little bit more cool, calm, and collected in those types of situations.
Yeah, and he's a sixth-year senior. So this is an older guy, and to have the season he had last year, was kind of like, what the hell? Because everyone expected him to take another step. And I remember summer scouting on him last year and thinking like, all right, I need to see him push the ball down the field more. I need to see him take more shots. And it's like, well, that didn't go well when they asked him to do that. And I think, so now I'm curious to see going to Miami, Florida. We've seen what Cam Ward was able to do there, but Cam Ward had more natural talent, I think, just as a creator, I agree. An out of structure type creator than Beck. And Beck can, he's not a complete statue back there. He can get some yards with his legs, but it's not like a super strength. It's not something that he's going to extend plays and get out of sacks. You get your hands on him, it's a good chance he's going down. He is kind of thin still, but I mean, he has tall. And like you mentioned, he's got the good arm, but this is a make or break for his whole NFL career this season at Miami. But go ahead. And
I did like the call out. So when I was talking to Bill Sparks about this about a week ago, one of the things, and I didn't even think about this, he's going to have to outshine Ward Shadow. You're going to this system that they're like, hey, we just did this with Ward. Let's do it with Beck. And if you're an everyday fan, like that's kind of your mindset and that's what you're thinking. And, the first time you have that down game, the first time you get a loss early in the season, which maybe it won't happen, but if it does, man, you're going to have to face not only the adversity of like other teams, but also the adversity of a home fan base. So I think that's something else that is going to be a real element.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for him this season. My number 8 is a guy you mentioned earlier that you haven't watched too much of, but John Mateer. And honestly, had I not added in Sam Levitt, Arch Manning, some of these guys who I think maybe 2027 ultimately, he would have been even higher on this list. But he's another guy who has 2 years if he wants it. He had a game versus Boise State, even a loss, sacked 8 times, threw for over 300 yards, completion percentage of 70%. Like that says a lot about a quarterback, just those statistics alone. That's what kind of guy he is. You can hit me, I'm going to keep getting back up. Now, he doesn't have the size that ideally you would want. I think he's 6'1", so that's
he's a little guy.
Something. Yeah, he's transferring to Oklahoma this year, so Mateer coming from Washington State to Oklahoma, so that's just something. I think it'll be exciting. You mentioned Jade Knott earlier, who was at Cal.
I'll say that Oklahoma offense is going to be stacked.
He'll be at Oklahoma at running back. I know they have a couple other running backs, which we may talk running backs on one of these episodes.
I think they got Deion Burks back this year too. It's gonna be a fun offense.
Yep, for sure. But he's the athletic quarterback, so he's dual threat guy. He can run and pick up. Legit runner, like, that can make plays. Game versus San Jose State. I know it's San Jose State, but they won the game overtime 54-52. He had 390 passing yards. Incredible. 111 rushing. Like, that's the type of dual threat ability this guy has. He's just a smaller guy, and I'd like to see him stay in the pocket, look for his receivers a little more, stay downfield. Don't be so quick to run. But at the same point in time, when you have that athletic ability, it is something that you're like, well, I can go get this first down. So it's a fine line for how quarterbacks do it. And I think he does a pretty good job at it overall. But, he's pretty accurate. And I just expect part of this is like I'm expecting him to now take another step. And I think in the transfer portal, he was like the top guy, the top guy overall of all positions for like on 3. So he was highly sought after. He's going to Oklahoma. He's going to have every opportunity to really put his name on the map even more so. So I'm excited to see what Montier can do. I got him at quarterback 8, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is like a day 2 type pick, if he decides to come out.
Nice. No, I like that call out. Like I said, he's another guy. I think between like Robertson, Daniels, and Montier, those are 3 guys that I want to get eyes on all 3 of those dudes because I think they could be a lot of fun. So my number 7 quarterback is.
We actually have the same number 7. So this one.
All right, we can have a conversation about him really quick then. So I think Sam Levitt, and to your point, we've been talking about some guys that are, redshirt seniors, or Carson Beck being a 6-year senior. Nico is a redshirt sophomore. Sam Levitt's also a redshirt sophomore. So he's kind of in this boat. Like, if he came out this year, it'd probably take something special. But man, he was a lot of fun to watch, especially down the stretch last year, playing a freshman or a redshirt freshman season. And there were a lot of things that really went with that Arizona State offense and that Arizona State team in general. Obviously, some of the unknown with Tyson and Levitt kind of filtered into that preseason prediction of them not being that great, and they completely smashed that. And Levitt showed, why he's the top quarterback in this NCAA or in this college football time. But I really like Sam Levitt. I think he's another guy that he's going to have some physical limitations. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. You think he'll probably put on a little bit more mass, but ultimately that height's going to be on the lower side of things. But he is a gifted quarterback with kind of that frame. So number one, he can push the ball down the field well enough with that. I think ultimately he's not going to be like, your 6'4", 6'5" quarterback that's able to just have a rocket for an arm, but you're not going to be unable to make NFL throws because of that. Like he'll still deliver that to you. And then in addition, what he brings to you with that is just an athletic ability to kind of be elusive and really make plays happen when, a lot of times other quarterbacks who are stuck in the pocket are unable to. He's always looking to make a throw, gets out of the pocket, scrambles really well, eyes are downfield. I love his ability to do that. He's a smart quarterback as well. I've got written down. He's not going to be one that is looking to play hero ball out there. And at the college level, it's tough to get that out of a player's system. We're like, hey man, I got to be the guy to make this 15-yard throw across my body to the numbers down there to pick up this 3rd and short. Like, no. Just throw the ball away and live another down. I think that Levitt does a really good job of that. So I really like him a lot. I think that physically that the stature brings him down maybe a little bit for me, but I don't think we're not talking like Bryce Young small.
Right.
It's just he's not going to have the stature of other larger quarterbacks. And I think that with it, he does struggle a little bit with accuracy with his deep ball. I think he can still continue to improve that. He's a young quarterback. He's going to get those pieces. But tell me about him. What did you think about him that also had him at 7 for you?
Yeah, I thought like his processing speed was pretty good for being a redshirt freshman last year. And I think he ended up with 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the season. So it's the redshirt freshman. So he transferred from Michigan State. Talk about Aiden Childs, and Newt will talk about Aiden Childs also here in a second. But so he was there, but he ultimately redshirted, didn't play very many snaps as a true freshman. Transfers to Arizona State, wasn't guaranteed that job, comes in, wins that job, and it takes it over as a redshirt freshman and had a fantastic season ultimately. And everyone's going to point to, and it is the biggest question. Without Cam Scatterbo, how does he do? Without him, that when you got a guy that can handle the workload that Cam did and do all the things that he did for Arizona State last year, it's like, all right, does he start to do some of that hero ball? Does he, that's a big concern to me. Like, do you start to see some of that where you put more on his plate like Carson Beck, and then it's like, all right, more turnovers and, the confidence. So that's a concern, but it's honestly an unfunded concern because it's just something that I just have to see, and that's just in the back of my head. But overall, I think, he's mobile. He can scramble. He can get yards. He can, they can honestly scheme it for him to get some quarterback carries. Yeah. But with that, you mentioned the 6'2", 200 pounds. So it's like, all right, is he going to hold up if you do that? So there's a fine line between doing that. But I think his arm strength's pretty good. The mobility's there. The processing speed was far advanced for a redshirt freshman, in my opinion. So if he can continue that trajectory, I think this is a guy who could be sneaky top 5 pick if he has just an insane season. And that's why I think we both have him at 7, because like he may ultimately be another year or 2 away. Yep. But if everything works out and he progresses how he did even last year during the season, we could be talking about a top 5 pick. So you got to talk about it. Yeah,
you talk about it and I love that you have it. It's like, hey, it's redshirt freshman season we're talking about here, and like the processing speed there, and like, he might play 3 more years of college football. I really hope he doesn't, because I think that he's an exciting player. But he was a redshirt freshman. I'm gonna throw one more stat out at you, and kind of like piggybacking off the picks that you said. So he had a 1.1 turnover-worthy play percentage, which is almost half of the next closest player, who was Arch Manning, who like realistically didn't have, in my opinion, enough opportunities to like have like a true value. So like just like the processing, the awareness, and like it makes him such an attractive prospect when you talk about how he's gifted athletically with an adequate NFL arm and just like that understanding of the game is just, it really is an unspoken thing. That's the whole thing about Carson Beck. It's why we're not talking about Carson Beck as a top 3 pick, because he just lacks that understanding. And it seems like Leavitt really has a gift for that.
Well, and it's just, there's an aura, as the kids say. There's a swagger to this guy.
Swagger and aura, yep.
I think that's why I don't necessarily see him falling off or anything like that. But it's just something that I'm like, without Scatterbo, it's going to be a question till he doesn't have him out there. And I still think, are they the ones who got like, I think it's Kanye Udo or whatever from like Army as a transfer at running back, who I have not watched yet for running backs.
I'll say I wouldn't know. I mean, I know Jordan Tyson. Like everyone loves Jordan Tyson. I like Jordan Tyson as well. Don't get me wrong. But like I've seen so many things like Jordan Tyson, wide receiver 1. It's like, man, if you got the wide receiver 1 in this year's draft class,
see, we're gonna be arguing about. I have him at 1, but I don't like the wide. I think it's wide open. I think tight end 1 is wide open, which is why we're gonna have to do all these positions if we get the time to do it over the summer.
I like it. Yeah. No, I think that's perfect.
It's I think it's just wide open. But I thought Tyson was pretty good. But we won't dive into him because we got a lot of quarterbacks to go through. So I'll get to your quarterback 6. We both had Sam Leavitt from Arizona State at 7. Your quarterback 6 is a guy I had at 10. Your 10 I have at 6. So
I get to talk about Childs.
You're talking about Aiden Childs from Michigan State as your quarterback 6. What did you like about him?
So I'll piggyback off some of the negatives that you had, because I think they're totally fair call outs. And once again, like that stat that I like to point to, like he had a 3.5 big time throw percentage and a 5.1 turnover worthy play percentage. And it's like, you can't have that. Like in no realm should those numbers be, weighted that way and have your turnover worthy plays above 5%. It's just, you can't have it. But once again, he was a he was a true sophomore last year. So his second year in college football, I think his first year as an actual starter. And so he really kind of like was under some growing pains there. But I think that just kind of everything that he brings to an understanding, the one thing that I really like about Michigan State is they run a pro style offense. He took so many snaps under center where he's able to like run a true play action and, get that where he's rolling out and then able to do things that if you take a look at an NFL GM and they see this guy taking all those snaps under center, that's going to be something that they really like because they say this guy's mature enough to do that. He's not just taking snaps and a two-step drop from a shotgun position. He is running a pro-style offense. So he's another one that he can't play the way he played last year. And to your point, it's the truth of the matter. He did not play well enough to continue with that trajectory. But I think he showed a lot.
The second half of the season was much more exciting.
He showed a lot of promise with the growth that he made through that season. You're exactly correct. So if he can continue to do those things that make those incremental steps forward, and I think that just comes with, once again, he's not playing in a Tennessee or an Ole Miss offense where it's like, hey, man, go out there, toss the ball around. He's playing in an offense where he's asked to do a lot of things. And if he's able to do those things really well, I think that he can really cement himself as a top quarterback in this class because of that ability for him to, show growth throughout this and show what he's able to do. I think he's got physical gifts when it comes to those pieces. I don't think he's like the greatest ball carrier in the world, but I think he's definitely a dangerous ball carrier. If he gets into space, he can really make defenders pay for giving him too big of a cushion. You might not be a player like you have 100% a spy on him at all times, but definitely someone that can break a run when he gets out into space. And I think he's got the ability to throw the ball with both touch and drive the ball downfield. So he's got an arm that's able to deliver the throws. He's got the athleticism with his feet to be dangerous, which are, really the two things that you look for in a quarterback. And if he can continue to make the strides that this year that he made at the end of last year, I think he's going to be a really fun quarterback to watch and a guy that we're talking a lot about.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. Like all the potential in the world is there for him. Yep. He even 1 year or 2 years away. And another guy that maybe I'm a little higher on Mendoza because he is a redshirt junior. So a guy you had, I believe, at 10, Fernando Mendoza, transferring to Indiana from California, 6'5", 225. So the size alone, you're like, that's prototype size for a quarterback. And he can move. Like he has plays where he gains 60, 70 yards. Like if he gets some space, he can outrun guys. He can outrun the angle on guys. And it's special for a guy that size. But honestly, what I like him most as a passer, he's pretty accurate. What I like most is he will stand in there and take a hit. The toughness on Mendoza is why I'm like quarterback 6. That could be even higher depending who is in this draft class and not. And if he's in it, he could go to Indiana for a second season. But I like that. Cignetti did really good with Curtis Rourke from Ohio last year. Indiana it seems like a program on the rise. I think getting Mendoza and that fit is pretty good for him going to Indiana. So I'm excited. Like, I think there's a lot to build with. He has all the traits you want in a quarterback and his ability to run and stand in there and take a hit, man. When I see a quarterback that will do that and deliver the ball accurately, I'm like, all right. I like this guy. So as much as I can't root for him being like, a Buckeye fan here, but no, I think Mendoza is gonna have another good season. If he does, I think he'll have a tough decision on coming out or not. But I could easily, it's another guy I could see being. He has the potential to be a first-round pick.
Yeah, no, I definitely see the hype around him, and like I said, I mean, I wasn't even planning on watching him and seeing the ball fly around the field. I was like, this guy, I've got to get eyes on. Do we have the same top 5?
I think we do.
Not in the same order, but like,
yeah.
I was like,
they're not in the same order, but we do have the same top 5, which is kind of surprising, honestly, because when you're doing a lot of these, and most positions we do, I'm guessing we will not have near the same top 5 if we do any more positions. But
that's fair.
Quarterbacks,
but it works out.
Mendoza was close to cracking my top 5. And the guy you have at 5 and the guy I have at 5, we've kind of got these guys flip-flop. So you have Cade Klubnik at quarterback 5 from Clemson. I've got him quite a bit higher.
Ooh, all right. I like that. Let's go with that. So Klubnik, I think if I was going to place a bet on the Heisman winner this year, I think Cade Klubnik would be my bet. And more so because I think, number one, that Clemson offense and that Clemson team in general is just going to be – they are going to be a force. Like, watch out for Clemson right now. Early national champion favorite, in my opinion. Cade Klubnik, early Heisman favorite, in my opinion. It's just, you take a look at everything that team has going for them. They've got 3 legit receivers on that team. They've got a defensive line that is stout, and a defensive backfield that's pretty good too. And then you toss Cade Klubnik in there, which, like, Klubnik has the pedigree of a NFL or of a college prospect, just with, you know, all the things that he's kind of had leading up to this point. I didn't talk a ton about, like, these guys in high school and everything, but, like, he was an Elite 11 MVP. That's one of the things that you see with high school quarterback prospects, the Elite 11 camp. He was the MVP of that 2020 and 2021. So his junior and senior season, USA Today Offensive Player of the Year, and then the 2021 Texas Gatorade Player of the Year. He actually finished top 3 nationally. It's just insane stats that this guy has for his pedigree. And I really like him. Apparently not as much as you, and I know he's really high on a lot of people's board. I won't, like, harp too much on the positives because I'm sure you're going to go over a lot of them. Obviously, like, I've talked to the pedigree a good amount, but I think he has a really good throwing motion, nice, tight, compact. It's a really efficient arm. He can get the ball to all parts of the field, inside, outside, short, deep. I'm not too worried about that. I don't think he's got he hasn't got a cannon for an arm, but once again, it's kind of like a Levitt conversation where it's an adequate arm to get it there. And I think he's really good in the pocket. Some things that just I didn't love from him is a lot of people, in my opinion, talk about his athleticism. And I see the athleticism, but it doesn't necessarily transfer over to a mobile quarterback for me. I think he's got escapability, but I'm not seeing him as like, oh, I'm going to design a ton of things around him, like being dangerous out in space. I think that he's going to live really well in a bootleg or a rollout, but he's not super dangerous as a runner. So able to, like, scramble ability, but not like runner ability, if that makes sense. Yeah, and then, like, he's got to improve his touch. Like, he's firing balls left and right. Screens, rollout, dump offs. I think he needs to just have a little more touch with those. And then he's another guy. I talked about it with Nico. Klubnik's got to protect the ball. He had 9 fumbles in 2024. It's something that you don't want to see. He was another guy. He pushed the ball downfield well enough, over 5 for his big time throw percentage. Love it. But just, you got to hold on to the ball a little bit more when you're kind of moving around behind the pocket. But that's kind of why I see Cade at 5. I know we're going to talk about him definitely a little bit later based on what you said. But definitely a top 5 quarterback to me.
I think we'll switch it up. Since we have the same top 5, we'll stick with each player and where we have them.
So where does he come in for you?
He comes in at 2 for me.
Okay.
It's tough. And without giving everything away, there's 2 guys that I like more, but they could be more 2027. And I've got him this high because he's a true senior. So, or he's a redshirt junior, one or the other. I know this is his 4th season. I don't think he redshirted as a freshman.
He's a true senior. I have down.
Okay, that's what I have too. Former 5-star, like you mentioned, and it was why having this high is honestly the way he played at the end of the season. I thought he was playing his best football against some very good teams. I thought the way he played against even South Carolina in a loss, then versus SMU, and then versus Texas. 336 yards and 3 touchdowns versus Texas. Like, he was coming on, and he's got, as you mentioned, all the weapons around him. All of those linemen could be drafted linemen. I'm not super high on necessarily any of them. Blake Miller's probably the best for Clemson, but they're all 5, could be drafted next season on that line. The weapons are there. Everything is there for, as you mentioned, a Heisman season. And a lot of times you see these guys, if they ball out, they have a Heisman season, they end up going this high. So it's a bit like what I see and a bit predictive of where I think he could end up after this season.
Yeah.
Because I can understand your number 5. I really can. He's got to do better with ball security. He's pretty good throwing on the run, but there's times where it's like, okay, maybe you need to stay in the pocket more. Maybe you need to not get so antsy. Maybe you need to not do this. And then that leads to him running, and that leads to those fumbles. And he did cut down on interceptions from 9 to 6. So he was pretty good in that aspect, but it could be better. And it's also the ball security where he takes off and runs and fumbles. That scares the hell out of me, but he's played 37 games. So you talk about experience, and he's still young because he didn't redshirt, but another smaller guy too. So 6'2", 205, kind of like we were talking about Sam Levitt, similar type size guy there. Those are the parts that scare me. Almost as we talk about this, I'm like, I probably am too high on Clemson.
I was gonna say when you're like going through this, I'm like, sell me, Dale,
have
sell
him at
me.
number 1. So many people have him at number 1, and I don't know. Maybe that's in the back of my head, but he has a quick release. I think the mobility is pretty decent. They do design some stuff. Phil Moffitt was not a very good running back for them last year. So I think that's part of it too. Maybe he's got more mobility this year, but I still have questions about Clemson's running game overall. I just think he's going to have a big season because of the talent around him. And then we're probably still going to be sitting here when the season's over going, how high should you take him? But he's going to be a polarizing quarterback prospect, I think.
Yeah.
And my number 5 may not even be in this draft class. So I'll mention him first because I know you've got him higher. So my 5 is Lenore Sellers, but this is a guy, for me, who I could easily flip with Cade Klubnik and have him around 2 for me or 1 for me. Like, the talent is there. 6'3", 240. That size is insane. He's got a huge arm. He can run the ball basically like a running back.
Yep.
It's just he has to do all the things as an actual quarterback to be higher on this list for me. He's at 5 now, but it's like I like so much about Sellers. He's literally a magician in the pocket. Tough to bring down. Elite traits for a quarterback, but he's got to let the game slow down mentally for him. That's the biggest thing. Let things slow down, be a better passer, take care of the ball. But there's no reason this kid couldn't be a number 1 overall pick. Like, if Arch decides I'm going to stay at Texas for his second year, I could see him right in the conversation for number 1 pick with a good season. Now, we'll talk about where you have Sellers. Since he was my 5, you had Sellers as your quarterback 3.
Yep.
Not too far off.
No, it's not. God, the physical gifts are, just alarming with him. And you already mentioned the pieces. I've seen and I don't love this, the cheap comp to Anthony Richardson. I think that there's different, the build. Yeah. The differences in their play and their strengths and weaknesses is going to be vastly different. I think with Lenore Sellers, the biggest thing that Lenore Sellers needs to do this year is he needs to play better under pressure. He did not play well under pressure in the slightest last year. He almost had a 20% pressure to sack ratio, which means literally 1/5 of the times that he gets pressured, he takes a sack. You cannot do that. In addition to that, all of his numbers dropped drastically for that. But God, this guy's got a cannon for an arm. You already mentioned the things that he can do as a runner. And it's just, you see that, and you see those things dripping from him, and you're like, man, that could be someone that's special. And I think the nice thing about Lenore Sellers is, we're talking about him in this light now. We're talking about that with Anthony Richardson during the draft process once he's already declared. So I think the difference now is it's not, hey, what can this guy become when you draft him? It's okay, what's this guy going to do this year that really makes him an attractive prospect? And I think that gives him the opportunity to really flourish. It also, creates a little bit of a what if he doesn't have the season that you want. He
redshirt sophomore.
He didn't take that step forward as redshirt sophomore. He should go back, but he's a really young player, and I appreciate you calling out hey, he there's a good chance he's not even in this draft class. But man, this guy is just dripping with trades. If you ever get a chance, anyone that's listening out there, to pull up the clip, he's playing in the 2024 bowl game. I'm not sure which bowl game it is, but whatever South Carolina played in against Illinois, he delivered a 50-yard shot downfield off his back foot with a defender right in his face, completed it. And it was just like, what? How can this guy do this? And I think it's going to be things and elements of his game like that where it's going to be tougher a prospect, a scout or a GM or anyone like that to quit on him, because like, man, what could he become? Obviously, like the bad taste of Anthony Richardson is fresh in a lot of people's mouths. And so maybe, he's really got to do a lot to prove that. Maybe, he takes a step forward this year, but it's not quite there. And he makes a smart decision and returns for his redshirt junior season. But God, this guy is just dripping with traits. And someone that
I feel like he's already has shown a little more accuracy than Anthony Richardson ever did. And he's only going into his redshirt sophomore. I think that's why, like, for me, I feel even though he's 5 for me, I feel much higher on him as an overall prospect, whether it's this year or next year. He's got a whole season if it's after this season, and he's got 2 years if it's after, if he doesn't come out till 2027 draft. Correct.
And it's just another guy. Hey, can we see those improvements throughout? So, really like Lenore Sellers, but he's once again a guy for me. You have to make the stride. If you play like you did last year, you're not going to be QB3 for me. That's just how it is. You got to continue to make the strides forward.
I think when I first watched this, I had him as QB2, which I'll get to my QB1 later. But we're entering our third player, but he's actually 4 on our list. So we've jumped around between Klubnik, Sellers, and but the third player here is both of our number 4s.
Okay.
And it's Drew Aller from Penn State. So 6'5", 243. I'll kick off with him. True senior this season. Honestly, it's a guy that everybody's just waiting to take that next step. And the biggest games, like his Ohio State games, has not been good. The accuracy has to be more consistent. You see it improve. He was better last year. And I know their receivers wasn't very good. Like there was games that their receivers wouldn't even have a catch in the bowl game. I think it was one of the bowl games or one of those games. But he's got the size. He can move a little bit. It's not like something I don't think he likes to do, but or you're going to ask him to do at the next level a lot. But if you need it, he can do it to pick up some yards.
Yeah.
He's got to work on just throwing guys open, not waiting for them to be wide open. That's something for me. I know some people thought, well, if he came out this year, he'd be the 2nd overall. He's quarterback 4, and honestly, he's one of those guys that I feel like Carson Beck last year. I am worried that he could have a bad season, but I also know that Penn State, kind of like Clemson, is absolutely stacked around him with the guys that have come back. Still some questions about receiver, but they've tried to improve there. But 2 of the best running backs in the country, a really good offensive line. Their defense is going to be really good again. There's a lot to like with Aller, but he is such a toss-up for me. Having him at 4 is about the safest place I feel like I can put him, because I could see him having a season and I go, he's Carson Beck and Quinn went in the 7th round, or is one of those top overall picks because the talent's there, but it's kind of like the mentals and the consistency of this guy is just all over the map. And I would just like to see big games. He shows up, he's consistent with his footwork. He's more accurate on a consistent basis, and it's not just like a roller coaster ride with him, because I feel like that's what it's been like.
I like that you called out the big games, because I think that is one of the bigger things for him is he really does need to show up in those big games. The Ohio State game, the conference championship game, the semifinal for the college playoffs. He's got to show up in those games and show out in those games. I'm not worried about him necessarily as being a baller. I think one of the best things he did last year was take a look at the USC game. Down at halftime, and to a team they shouldn't have been, but down at halftime, they come out. He has to have put together a game-winning drive. He converts 2 fourth downs on that, and like he has the ability. and he does have like that mental fortitude, but it's not quite there enough to like stand up when the lights are at their absolute brightest. So I think that's something that he absolutely has to show this year. And to your point, I think the Carson Beck call out is really, really good for that, because like, I don't want to be talking about this guy like, man, he just faded, and he was a product of, the elements that were around him. I wrote down one of my negatives, and I think you covered the other half of it, but like, I think he was too reliant on Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren did a lot for that offense, but I think he was a little too reliant on Tyler Warren. And I think part of that goes into the way that Penn State runs their offense. If anyone out there has not gotten a chance to see like a Penn State game, it's wild. Like, especially with Warren last year, they ran it like, what, I don't know, every game there's probably like 5 running the wildcat where Tyler Warren's taking snaps under center. And it's just like the things they did, and they maximized the potential. Like, I love it. But so many times where it's just like, this offense is running through Tyler Warren. It's running through their stud running back duel with Fat Man and Nick Singleton. And I think that the biggest thing, like you said, is Aller has to prove that he can play when the lights are the brightest. He has the mechanics. He has the size. He has shown that he knows like the understandings of the position, but can he handle the weight of that when, the pressure is the highest? Yeah. So I love everything that you said with that. I think you said it really, really well.
I think everyone just wants to see, and Penn State should be right in the mix for a national title. And I mean, they, last year, had he shown up a little more in the biggest moments, they probably would have been playing for one. So it's just something that you've got to see this year.
Yep.
All right. I'll go to your quarterback 2. This is actually my quarterback 1. But I will say this is my quarterback 1, and it's your quarterback 2.
Oh, man, my quarterback spoiled, like, probably the craziest part about this.
Garrett Nussmeier is my quarterback 1. I like a lot about Nuss. Another guy, though, that's not great size, 6'2", 200, and the turnovers were crazy. He's a redshirt senior. Only a second season as a starter, though, playing behind Jaden Daniels, some other guys there at LSU. But I'll let you talk about him first. He's your number 2. I like him, but 12 interceptions. I know that's going to be brought up.
So here's the thing. I'm getting ready to talk about Nuss as like, oh, I'm a little higher in Nuss than Dale is, and all of a sudden, like, I find out, like, you kind of spoiled the surprise there. You could have pulled the rug out from under me.
Well, I didn't know where to start. We've got 2 players left, and I could have went this. I've got Arch as quarterback 3.
Well, I'm obviously at this point. Oh my gosh. All right. So let me talk about Nuss a little bit, and then I'll let you go from there. I think so. Here's the difference, and I love that we're kind of discussing this in comparison with other players. His size is almost identical to Cade Klubnik's, which is almost identical to Sam Levitt's. Yeah. Nuss has a better arm than both those guys, and I talked about those guys having like adequate arms for their size. Nuss has an arm. Like, this dude's got a cannon that can fire things around the field. Like, he can put the ball, and the word effortlessly comes to mind. He can put it where it needs to go very quickly with that. I talked about with Klubnik, that compact throwing motion. Nuss can put the ball further. He can put a little more zip on the ball with the exact same compact throwing motion. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me, is the arm talent that he brings at that size. I don't love the size, but I can get past that because he's got that ability. Now, the detriment to this is Levitt, Klubnik, they've got more athleticism. Nuss is a pocket passer. Like, this dude is throwing the ball out of the pocket. I don't love his ability to scramble, but I think the thing about his game is he knows he's a pocket passer. He knows he's not a scrambling quarterback, and he has maximized every aspect of his game to match that mentality. So I really, really like what he brings to the table. I think he is one of the higher floor players in this year's draft class. And to that point, I think that it makes a ton of sense for you to have him as QB1, where if you ask me to pick today, hey, who's the safest bet? I probably would say Nuss, because, like, obviously, spoiler, Arch Manning's number 1 for me. We've seen, I don't know, less than 200 snaps out of Arch Manning in his collegiate time. a lot of things to like, but there are still a limited amount of things that you can point to. Where with Nuss now, full year in, you love what you see. You mentioned already the turnovers. He started 1 year. Let the guy grow, like we said with all of these guys.
Exactly.
Let the guy continue to develop. He's shown an IQ for the game. Let him start to show and feel a read or an understanding for those pieces, just like we talked about with all of these players. He plays like he's an NFL quarterback in terms of his poise in the pocket, in terms of his arm talent. I think that really puts him above a lot of these other players here. So tell me why,
honestly,
beyond that.
No, you honestly nailed everything. I mean, I think the arm strength, the anticipation, like everything he can do. He's a bit of a gunslinger, and he has to cut down on 12 interceptions, but I kind of like a gunslinger, and maybe that's why I have him at number 1, because I like that guy that's willing to take those shots. The Baker Mayfields, the Brett Favre.
Hey, I was just saying, man, I grew up on Brett Favre. You don't have to
sell that part of it to you. But yeah, I just think there's a lot to like there. The size does worry me, but he's also tough. Like I talked about that with Mendoza, who's a lot bigger, standing and take a hit. This is a guy who got knocked out of the game. It was Oklahoma. He comes back in the game and just stands in there and continues to fire away and plays one of his better games against them after being knocked out of the game for a series or two. I'm just like toughness, the arm strength, everything about this guy. He's not the most mobile, as you mentioned. That's not his game. I worry about the durability of him. So there is some concerns, but I'm just like, I think if he cuts down on the turnovers, the pedigree's there too. His dad is the offense coordinator for the Saints, Doug Nussmeier. So the football IQ, everything about this kid, I think is trending up. And as you mentioned, it started 1 season. So yes, he's older. This is redshirt senior season, but football wise, he hadn't played a ton. It's LSU. I'm not saying he's anything like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, the guy. I'm not saying this, Bengals fan. What I'm saying is he could take a big step, completely different player, but take a big step in his second season starting like Joe Burrow did in his second season starting for LSU and work his way into being maybe the number 1 overall pick. It would not surprise me, especially if a guy like Arch Manning decides to go back to Texas, Sellers. There's a lot of ebbs and flows of how this class could turn out at quarterback. But this guy I know will be in the class, and I feel very safe putting him as my early quarterback 1 prior to the season starting. So that's probably the biggest reason I have him there. And then I got Arch at 3, and I will keep this short because I know you have him higher, and I'll let you talk all about him. I have Arch at 3 for simply one reason. You mentioned it, like 200 snaps. He hasn't played enough football for me to say, yeah, I'm putting this guy at number 1. That is the only reason. But all the things you see, if he declares he's the favorite by far before he ever plays it down this season to already be the number 1 pick. So I'll let you jump into your number 1 player, Arch Manning, Texas.
So, obviously, I'm not going to point to any, the play statistics from last year, but, if you look at his build, 6'4", 225. Man, do you absolutely love to see that. If you look at the opportunities that he did get to throw on the field, where he got a chance to start against Mississippi State because Quinn Ewers, shocking, was injured. The dude showed why everyone's so excited about him. And I think that Mississippi State game was a really good one to take a look at. He's got an arm that can put the ball anywhere, and not even put the ball anywhere, but put the ball in a bread basket anywhere. And it's once again, and I mentioned it already with Nuss, it's effortless. He wants to make the throw, it's compact, and he just, boom, it's made 35 yards downfield, once again, right where you want to see it. Now, Mississippi State, no, I'm not trying to slander it all, but it's not a premier team. SEC, Power 4, but it's not the Bamas of the world. It's not the Georgia.
They're bottom tier. They're bottom tier SEC.
So, that's the one thing that kind of holds me back. It's all right, you got a chance to do that against Mississippi State, yes, and you performed well. I want to see that then, obviously, this year as you start to play the top talent that you're
starting right away. That Ohio State game, man, is going to be insane.
It's going to be fun, and I think with all that, I respect the hell out of Texas with how they schedule these games. Michigan last year, and then obviously the SEC calendar that they have, Ohio State this year. I think that Sarkisian and all of those guys in that program, they are looking to prove that Texas football is back, and it's fun to watch. Like I remember when I'm like going to college in the early 2010s, and it's like, Texas is okay. They're not what they were. And now it's like, no, Texas football is back. And you see it in a really, really fun way here. So, yeah, you're going to see it right off the bat. But he's got the arm. He's got the size. The other thing is he has the athleticism. Like this dude can move.
It's not Peyton.
He's not Peyton. He's not Eli. He is not his uncles. He can move, and he can move really, really well. So you pair the size, the arm, all of that. I think that just really the biggest thing that you have to see from this guy, which is like, I respect you kind of like having us where you have, and that mentality of like, all right, well, he's got 200 snaps. How is he going to handle the pressure when the lights are the brightest? And we've talked about that with so many players. How is he going to handle like all of the things that come with the starting quarterback role in terms of a guy who's probably going to be projected as a top 3 Heisman candidate, if not number 1 out of the year, a top 5 program. And like you mentioned, the number 1 overall pick going into the college football season when we haven't even played a snap. There is now so much on this guy this year than there
hasn't bothered him
was.
his whole life, though. That's something that I do give him credit for, and why I feel good saying it, because every part of his life has been this way. Peyton and Eli has always been his uncle,
Correct.
Arch Senior he's named after him. That's always been his grandpa.
He's number 1
lived
recruit.
up to this over and over.
Number 1 recruit. He started his true freshman year in high school, and like every tick or every box along the way he has checked, and that's why like I'm not necessarily like fretting about this, but I still need to see him do that.
I feel you. And I think that's the only like you have him at 1. I think he is worthy of being 1. I think he's going to live up to it. I am just holding it back slightly because I want to see it first. Ryan asked us what happens if he looks lost against the Buckeyes. I don't expect that to happen, Ryan, but I think that's a good question. I would still not freak out whatsoever because it's like this is his biggest game and he's got then still the whole season to get better and better and better. I mean, CJ Stroud, people thought sucked. There was games, some of his first starts where they were like, oh my gosh, this guy's awful. And Buckeye fans were always hard on CJ. And then when he was gone, it was like, oh shit, man, he was pretty good. So I don't think they could freak out, but it is one of those mental things, obviously, with that getting his head if he had a bad game or 2 or 3 interceptions. You don't know until you know. I think this kid has just been through it all. I'm not worried about it with him.
And I think to the point of like, obviously there's going to be, it's going to be love or hate with that in the media's eyes because they'll everything is on him so bright. But like, Lenore Sellers at the beginning of last year was not good. Aiden Childs at the beginning of last year was not good. Carson Beck, like we're still talking about him.
He's old as fuck and he's still not good.
Exactly. It's just like, there are so many things that come into this where we can talk about a guy. He can have a bad game. Shit. He's a redshirt sophomore. He can have a bad first half of the year. Obviously, it's going to be affecting him maybe a little bit more. Or I don't want to say affecting him, but there's going to be a lot more attention on it than there might be others.
Yeah.
But like he has 3 years of eligibility left. Like, let the kid grow. Let the kid go from there. I think one game, I don't think he is going to live or die by that game mentally. And I think that, as the media side, there's got to be a little bit of grace there.
I want to say the flip side. He goes in, he beats him, he looks really good. The hype train is off the rails, man. The hype train is full speed ahead.
Exactly.
And everyone's like,
it's going to be like minus 200 him to win the Heisman. First overall picks already in the bag.
Sure. Absolutely. So, I'll mention some other quarterbacks that I have, just on my list. So like Miller Moss, I have at 12.
I had him at 11.
From Louisville to USC. Diego Pavia, I have at 13. I can't quit him. I know he's probably too small to ever play it down in the NFL, but the guy's got onions. Connor Wegman, terrible season for Texas A&M. A lot of people, oh man, who's the guy that does the PFF simulator that had him as his quarterback?
Yeah, Trevor Sikkema.
Trevor Sikkema. What that one has to hurt bad to be like, put your stamp on that guy, and then he was that bad. But Mark Gronowski, who our buddy Ryan also mentioned, 4-year starter at South Dakota State, transferring to Iowa, so that'll be awesome to see him in the Big Ten. Luke Altmaier at Illinois. I thought he was pretty damn good last year. Excited to see him. Jalen Daniels, another guy, 57 completion percentage. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback ultimately, but maybe he gets a look and a practice squad guy, or goes to the Ravens, because the Ravens always love guys like that with dual threat ability. Kyron Drones, I could end up being higher on at Virginia Tech. We covered him on Jim's show with the NFL Draft Fanatic and This Is Our Relevant podcast. Check those guys out. But and then I've got, who else I got? Fafita from Arizona. I thought was going to be better last year. He really disappointed me, so now I'm way down on him. I got him.
He was already kind of like that gamble with his size, and then like you throw last year into there, you're like, oh man. Yeah,
it hurts. And then guys, I need to watch more, but I'll mention some of their. Taylor Green, number 1, 6'6", 230, Arkansas. I've got to watch more of his game so I can give a good evaluation on him. But he's high on my list. Haynes King, I know, another dual threat guy, Georgia Tech, but I need to watch more of him. Byron Morton, Texas Tech. Billy Edwards Jr. transferring to Wisconsin. Are you a Badgers fan? I know you're.
Is it? Oh, you can't quite see it. It's there it is.
There it is. I think I figured Green Bay. I figured it's. Yeah. But yeah, so it's another guy on my list. 6'3", 222. Caden Salter transferring to Colorado from Liberty. So that's some of the. Dante Moore, Oregon. Eli Holstein, Pittsburgh. I know a lot of people are really high on him. I need to watch him more. And I know last year was his first season starting. Plus, he had concussion issues. So I'm like, before I rank him, before I do all this, that was his first year starting, and he dealt with concussions, multiple concussions. That scares the hell out of me right off the bat. But I hope the best for him.
I don't know if you mentioned either of these names. So Gio Lopez out of South Alabama, going to be a redshirt sophomore. So a couple of these, like I threw out like a Twitter shout out, like, hey, let me know, give me guys, and I had great feedback from it. Gio Lopez, South Alabama, redshirt sophomore. At least he played at South Alabama last year. I'm not sure if he transferred, but then Avery Johnson, K-State, true junior this year. Okay, did mention him, but those are a couple, and then like all the other guys. I mean, you have just. You have the expansive list there, Dale.
Yeah. Here's some more. Ty Simpson for Bama. Jackson Arnold.
Yep.
Where did he transfer? Auburn, I believe, from Oklahoma. Malik Murphy, transferred to Oregon State from Duke, or one of those places. Oklahoma State. Kevin Jennings, SMU. Josh Hoover. Anthony Calandria. Rocco Beck. Gunnar Stockton. Jaden Maivia. Maddox Matson. Ashton Daniels, Jalen Rayner, and Brennan Sorsby. I haven't watched all these guys, but and most of them, as you can see in my notes here, are listed as like, I just got 2020.
27, yeah.
But guys, like when the season starts, I can be like, oh, this game's on. Okay, boom,
Yep.
Make some notes on them as I watch the games. That's my plan. All right, brother. We did over an hour. I got a new roof put on recently, had some leaking, working on the ceiling. I got a guy coming over. Should be here in about 15 minutes. So I better end it now. But so Gio's with Belichick. So transferred to North Carolina.
That's what it was. All right. That's why he's popping
Ryan's
up there.
on it. Ryan's always on it. We
appreciate you. He knows everything that's going on.
But and I appreciate you, Newt, for coming on, man. It's an awesome show. If you want to do any more of these, let me know.
We can make that happen.
Back, wide receiver. We can do top 10, top 15, whatever you want to do, brother.
Yeah.
Just hit me up.
I don't think this will be the only time. I'm on this summer.
And I know it's a little different for everybody in the comments because like somebody's like, we don't need a quarterback. And I'm like, I know. This is summer scouting for NFL in general. I love the NFL draft. I do a draft guide. I do some other draft shows with Mrs. Our Relevant and NFL Draft Professor. but Newt's one of my guys, and I love talking drafts. So this is a Dale show. You know, you talk about a mental health day. This is a Dale show. You know, because there's only so much I can talk about Trey Henderson and Shamar Stewart and the front office. There's only so much I can talk about.
This is how you come back from that. This is your safe space from there.
Yeah, this is my energy. You know, this is what it's like. I got to have something else, so I have energy for that one. I can bitch about it later, you know, but now I just want to talk about other prospects. But Newt, thank you for your time. I know you didn't feel good. I could hear it in your voice. You battled through Jordan flu game. You're the absolute man. Tell the people where to find you and what to check out with your website and everything else you got going.
So you can find me. I'm mostly on Twitter at NFL Draft _Westen. You can see it right there in the tag. I also run zerotechdraft.com on there. And I haven't done anything for the 2026 cycle yet, outside of like link to the videos I've made for summer scouting, which are over on the Weekly Huddle podcast on YouTube. Owen Culler, who also I believe has worked with Dale and a couple of Mrs. Are Relevant.
On Mondays, yep. We do shows. Yeah.
Yep. So great content there, but I've done my top 10s, just kind of talking through them. And also one thing that I've done different that's also on zerotechdraft.com is I have made my entire prospect grades public facing this year. So it is a public viewable Google sheet that you can see literally all of my notes, my grades, everything I've written down for every single player that I will be grading this year, just kind of like make my process transparent and give access to anyone that wants to see that stuff. So definitely something I'm excited about. But yeah, those two places are definitely where I look forward to. And then maybe a couple times on here this summer. That would be definitely
I'm open
fun.
For whatever, you know. We're both teachers, so this is our time to collect. But hey, through the fall, whenever, you know, I'll do Saturday shows with Newt. Newt's one of my favorites to talk to, have on, talk draft, talk. Hey, and now this NFL season, you know, this is kind of our first year knowing each other. So the Bengals play in Green Bay, so we're definitely going to have to preview that show.
The shit talk will be real for sure.
I'm not a big shit talker, though, because I'm just like, you know, I always just expect to lose most of the time, so I'm not let down. But we'll see. Maybe we'll get off to a good start, and I'll feel confident.
I like that.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.